Sometimes, but not most of the time. You're gonna have an easy wall like this where it's square, there's no bump outs, there's nothing in your way. You can just build your wall and you can tilt it into place and you can affix it. When you take the measurement for the height of your wall, you're not trying to build a wall that you wedge super tight into place and forces pressure on the bottom of the floor above it. So we're gonna measure this space, and I measure in several spots. I measure on each end, I measure in the middle, and then I take the shortest distance because we can always build this wall and then shim it in a couple places to attach it. So I take the shortest distance, and then you're actually even going to want to subtract a little bit, maybe like 1/8 of an inch, because you don't want to be fighting this to hit it in and you don't want to force pressure on the floor above. So then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your width measurement and you're gonna basically start cutting your pieces. Now, one thing to factor in if you have a top plate and a bottom plate is together those are gonna be 3 inches. So say your measurement is 86 inches, you're gonna go 86 minus 3 is 83, and then I'm gonna take 1 extra 1/8 of an inch or a little bit off, so we're slightly under that, so we're not fighting it to get it into place. Now, your studs, you're going to want to stud every 16 inches. So when people say studs are 16 inches on center, if you pull out your tape measure, and a lot of times every spot that a stud would go is red, there's going to be some sort of a marker. That's where you're going to put your studs. You want to make sure you don't have a void wider than that without a stud to attach to. Now there's this cool tool I wanted to try forever, and I'm actually using that here, and it spaces them for you, but it also kind of holds it in place while you're attaching the studs. For a basic wall, you're just gonna build it and tilt it into place. If you have a laser in your tool collection, you can use a laser to get all your lines straight and make your original marks on the floor. If not, you can just use a chalk line and snap those lines down. And then I would get the longest level that you have access to just to make sure you're plumb up and down. Make sure you don't trust what's existing around you. For instance, we had these support posts all around our area we were working in our foundation. And a lot of times people will just put it right up against the foundation or trust the posts that are existing. And in my case, those were really out of plumb. To attach my base plate into the concrete, we're gonna use a ram set. Now there's a million different styles of these and a million different brands, but basically this is a powder actuated tool. So you're getting a little, kind of like a cartridge with powder in it. You can get different strengths based on what you're trying to adhere into. I got the highest strength that I could get from my home improvement store that they had in stock. I probably could have gone a little bit stronger because older concrete is usually harder to adhere into than like a newer house, newer foundation. And this house is like 80 years old, 80 plus years old. And so there's different types of these ram sets. There's different brands. Some have a trigger, some you hit with a hammer, but this is what we're using to adhere into the ground below. Once we do this, you can either do the bottom first, the top first, whatever you prefer. Then we're gonna just use a nail gun or a screw to adhere into the board above. And so you can do that as you prefer and then make sure everything's level. A couple mistakes you wanna avoid or pay attention to if this isn't something you've done before. Just because you have a post or a beam or a wall in place, don't assume that it's level. For instance, our foundation all the way around the edge, a lot of times I see people frame their walls, tilt them into place, and they put them right up against that foundation. And the foundation it's a little bit canted this way or a little bit canted this way. It's out of plumb. So make sure before you're affixing your walls that you build, you're checking for level. Don't just assume that your foundation is plumb. Other thing, for instance, right here, this is our support beam for the upper level. We have our posts carrying the load, and these posts are crazy out of level. So we're building this wall to create a bedroom here and separate this space. And I'm just using 2x6s because this was approximately 6x6 post. And this is actually gonna come way over this way to be level because that is so out of plumb. And so we're almost gonna ignore that these are here when we affix the drywall and affix it to the wall that we're creating. So just make sure you're not trusting or counting on your surrounding space. You gotta make sure if you're gonna be in contact with the ground, you use treated lumber. In my area, my building department will allow treated lumber. So if you notice the difference between this lumber and this lumber right here, it's more expensive, but it's meant to be able to come in contact with the concrete. You're gonna have moisture from the earth seeping through this to a certain extent. So in my area, we can use redwood or we can use treated lumber. treated lumber is cheaper. There is also a list of materials that you can use, woods that are acceptable. Like my building department guy was telling me, they're just not available here, or that just budget-wise, it doesn't make sense to use something other than this. So that's just the ground contact. Now, I always kind of wondered, why do you have to have treated lumber on the ground, but not on the wall when there's concrete contact? And I guess I just never thought about it all the way through, but your exterior foundation walls are waterproofed on the outside. So they're not just concrete. There's a waterproofing membrane painted on, rolled on, sprayed on, however they do that. But on the ground, they pour this concrete over the dirt and there's no membrane below. So there could be moisture seepage from below, but from here, not the case. So if this touches, we're not concerned about that. So just kind of something I'd always wondered, thinking like, oh, this touches too. Well, there's waterproofing on the outside of this, and that's why. So treated lumber on your bottom plates. I actually got really stupid and I wasn't paying attention, and I just was like working and I was like, where are all my other treated lumber pieces? I had put them on both sides. I just wasn't I wasn't paying attention. I don't know what I was doing. So a little bit of a waste, and yeah, we won't do that again, but they're not required to be up there. If you see those up there, that was just a kind of snafu on my part. A couple extra tips. Sometimes you are going to be installing a wall parallel to your joist and not perpendicular. So you may need to add some blocking so you have something up above to attach to. When you're installing perpendicular, you really don't run into this, but you will need to fill in a couple spots more than likely. The other thing is, sometimes if you have headroom that you're working around, you may actually find it easier to lift in the top plate first and slide in the bottom plate rather than tipping the whole wall up. So if you run into a bind, that may be an option. And then last but not least, when you have corners, make sure you're adding some supports so that the drywall, whether you're installing it or having someone install it, there's strong support for behind the corners to support the back of the drywall and to have something to adhere to. I had to leave a lot open here because I'm still replacing the windows. One window has an egress window being installed. I have an electrician working and a plumber working and an HVAC guy. So once that work is all done, then we'll finish the blocking and framing out around the windows and one more space in here between the laundry room and the bathroom.